Hey guys, Nostalgic Dan 1 again here, and I'm here with another recent pickups episode. This is going to be episode 12, and I have a nice chunk of stuff, but I figured I'd show you this stuff before these next few crazy months of releases that are going to be happening, so I just want to get this out there, but let's get to it. And if you guys saw my mystery unboxing, you would have seen me unbox this, but I did get the Bandai Wonder Swan color. This is a pearl blue model. Cool little handheld. Has a really interesting, diverse library of games. A lot of anime games because it was by Bandai and it came out in Japan, so there are a lot of anime-based games. Lots of RPGs, but there's still a lot of fun, quirky games that can be played with no problem, no language barrier whatsoever. And I got a box incomplete, so this is a box. Shows the system back there. A nice small little box. Wonder Swan color. It's interesting. It's pearl blue model. So it's real cool. So I did pick up some games for it. I picked up 5 games for the Bandai Wonder Swan color. So first, I'm going to show you my one and only box complete Wonder Swan color game. Because I found all these Wonder Swan color games for really cheap. So the first one we have here is a really interesting game, and that's Digimon Battle Spirit for the Wonder Swan color. So the box is complete. And the boxes are really small too. It's really cool. And it's complete. So essentially this game is a Smash Brothers type clone with Digimon characters, if you can imagine that. It's a really simple and fun game to play. Like, there's no language barrier whatsoever with this game. This is a game, comes with like this protective, comes with plastic with the magnet, so it's really cool to have a complete Wonder Swan game. But yeah, it's basically like Smash Brothers with Digimon characters, if you can imagine that. So you pick different Digimon characters who have different abilities, and you just fight in these like 2D arenas, so like a Smash Brothers, and you can collect certain power-ups, you can use certain items, and there's even like a kind of Smash Ball kind of mechanic. Like in Smash Brothers, you get that Smash Ball and you get this really powerful move where in here, if you get this one item, you become like supercharged and you transform into this like big giant mech, and you become super powerful for a limited amount of time. And it's basically one-on-one, and at the end of the match there's like a deciding factor who wins. And the sprite work is really colorful. Looks like a nice little Game Boy Advance game quality wise. It's a really cool little game for the Wonder Swan color. And I did pick up 4 other games that are loose, but they were all really cheap. First one we have here by Namco, that is Wonder Stadium. And essentially this is just a really cool little baseball game. It's a kind of arcadey style baseball game. It's by Namco. It's got these really cool kind of arcadey like sprite work, and it's actually really fun. It handles really well, and it's a fun little arcadey baseball game. And next we have a really bizarre yet really interesting and actually surprisingly fun game on the Wonder Swan. It came with my system, and I didn't really know what it was. Like, I tried to look it up, I couldn't find any footage or anything. But once I got it, I tried it out, of course, and there's Deco Traw, which actually comes out to Decoration Truck. And essentially what this is you race like semi-trucks down a highway. Like, it's like a drag racing mechanic. Like, it's one-on-one, you and some other semi-truck, and you're racing down a straight line, like no turns whatsoever, just a straight line. You're weaving in and out of traffic by switching the lanes, by pressing like left and right. And that's pretty much essentially it, but it's really cool. It starts to get more complex, where it starts off with like a narrow road, and then the roads start to expand and you have to dodge more. It becomes more difficult because there's more traffic that you have to dodge, and it becomes more challenging, faster opponents. Interesting thing is, it's really in-depth with customizing. Like, I had no idea, but it's got a lot of in-depth customizing features. You could change the wheels, you could change the decorations on the truck, so you can put different images on the truck. You can change, like, you know, different features that make your truck faster. So like a really old school customizing mechanic right there for your truck to have the fastest truck. So super simplistic, drag racing game with semi-trucks, but it's surprisingly fun. It's actually got some cool little cutscenes in between, even though I can't understand anything that's going on, but apparently it seems like it's actually got a little story going on for it too, but really quirky game. It's surprisingly fun. And I picked this up. It is an RPG, but it looked like a really simplistic RPG, like that I wouldn't have a hard time playing, and I really didn't, so it's actually really cool. That's SD Gundam Ayu Densetsu, and essentially this is a simple like turn-based Gundam RPG. Like it's in the Gundam universe. You go to like different towns, you can interact with different people and go to inns and shops, get weapons and upgrade and stuff. And then it goes to an overworld map where like you can see the enemies on the overworld map, and if you interact with them it engages battle, and the battle's just a simple like one-on-one versus mechanic with like, or sometimes you fight multiple enemies, but it's a simple turn-based, you know, RPG. You just have like attack and defend, and you can use certain items, and it's super simplistic in that regard. So a really nice little turn-based RPG involving Gundam, so really cool. And lastly, we have really super simplistic puzzle game, but because of its simplicity, it's actually a really addicting game. That is Mingle Magnet. And essentially what this is it's a game where you hold the Wonder Swan like vertically, but it's a puzzle game involving like blocks, but you move a cursor around and you try and find pairs of blocks that are 3 or more, like just 3 blocks connected or more to 3 of the same blocks, and you click on them and make them disappear, and that's literally it. That's all you have to do. So super simplistic in that regard. That's all you have to do. Find like blocks that are connected by 3 or more, make them disappear, but it starts to speed up and it gets more crazy, and it just becomes really addicting because of how simplistic it is. You're just moving the cursor frantically around trying to clear all the possible blocks, and sometimes it becomes challenging to spot the pairs, but really interesting, super simplistic, but definitely a fun little puzzle game on the Wonder Swan. Mingle Magnet. And next we have a PS3 game I've actually been after for quite a while, but the reason it took me a while to get it is because I wanted the limited edition for it, because I'm actually a fan of the series. I'm becoming a big fan of the series, and it's definitely becoming my favorite NISA kind of RPG, but that is the limited edition of Atelier Rana, the Alchemist of Arlen for the PlayStation 3. This is a big box set, which comes with the game and an art book, a really gorgeous art book, and it's in great condition. So this is the first of the Arlen trilogy on the PS3. Totori came out, which I bought day one, the limited edition. I have it back here, and I played it and beat it, and I fell in love with it. Like, it made me want to get into the Atelier series. It was simplistic yet very addicting at points. Like, once you get into the later collecting and trying to find rare items and gathering rare items, fighting, you know, hard to beat monsters, and it just gets really addicting later on. So here's the art book that you get, a really nice hardcover art book, Atelier Rana visual art book. It's really getting like a go-getter or two in depth, but it goes over like different character sketches and whatnot, environments, and just different characters. Really nice, really high quality, so it's really cool to have this art book and the tutorial art book as well. Some nice little artwork. It's a really high quality art book, I love it. But I definitely wanted to get this because Maruru comes out, which is the final installment in the Arlen trilogy, and sadly enough, is going to be the last Gust Incorporated game to be published by NISA until Gust moves on with Tecmo Koei. I hope Tecmo Koei takes good care of Gust, but sadly I think this is the last we're ever going to see of like these kind of games from Gust coming out in America, because NISA is willing to take a chance on them. But Tecmo Koei, I doubt it. But beautiful game, and even though this one's not as good as Totori, because they keep improving as they go along. So this was the first one, so there's mistakes with it, and then they improved on it in Totori, but it's still a nice RPG. Here's the game. Interesting thing is, I bought this for like used from a seller online, and when I got the limited edition, it didn't have the game in it, So like I messaged the seller, I'm like, do you have the game? But you know, like casual people who buy this, they might like, you know, take the game out and put it elsewhere. So apparently he lost the game, but it worked out well because he refunded me the money and actually saved money and found a brand new factory sealed copy because this is actually shrink wrap. I haven't played it yet, so it worked out in the end. I still get the limited edition, save about $10 and get a brand new copy instead of a used copy. But definitely want to try it out. I love the music of it, I love the style. It's an alchemy RPG, really heavy based on alchemy. You have to do alchemy in order to progress the story, but you still go around in these nice dungeons and fight monsters and gather items. So a really addicting RPG, so I definitely want to try it out. And next we have a modern Xbox 360 game, and this is actually an import from the UK that I recently got a while back, and that is the great Dodonpachi Resurrection Deluxe Edition for the Xbox 360. This is published by Rising Star Games, and when Rising Star published it in the UK, they didn't region lock it. The Japanese version is region locked, but this one's region free, and this never came out in the States. It's a cave bullet hell shoot 'em up. It's a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up where you command this ship, and you can choose different ships too, and they have different like shots. But really over the top bullet hell shmup. Like literally, this is probably one of the most challenging bullet hell shmups you'll play. Like it is punishing in its difficulty, and like literally there's points where the bullets will fill up like the entire screen. But really cool, features a nice range of modes. Like it's got 2 arranged modes. It's got an Xbox 360 mode with really crisp and super clear visuals, which I love. And it's got the standard arcade mode. You choose different characters, there's lots of achievements to get, there's secret paths to take. It's really in-depth game. And I'm actually really happy they kept like the Japanese artwork on the game disc. I love this artwork on that. And since this is the deluxe edition, you do get the soundtrack CD, which actually came with the Japanese limited edition as well, so that's really cool to think. You have the game, and then you have the soundtrack CD. So that's really cool. So it actually wasn't too bad to import. Like it actually wasn't expensive at all. It's probably one of the cheapest like imports you can get. I found a great site who had it on sale for like £15 and like 0.99 pounds of ship. So it was about like £16, which came out to about $25 for the US, which is actually a really good price for an import title. It's especially for a really high quality game like this. Guess what? More PSP games. I love the PSP. Like I'm addicted. Like I need to stop buying PSP games, but I can't help it. Like there's so many good games and they're all so affordable. It's like insane. It's addicting. And it doesn't help that Amazon is clearancing their PSP games. They had a lot of PSP games I wanted on like clearance. They're just like liquidating the PSP games, trying to get rid of a lot of PSP games. So there were a lot of quality titles for really good prices, brand new. So first one we have, I picked it up because it's actually surprisingly kind of hard to find, but it's not rare, but it's not expensive by any means. It's just usually almost always out of stock, but Amazon had it brand new for only $6, so I definitely wanted to try it out, and I picked it up. That is Platypus on the PSP, made by Mumbo Jumbo. Interesting name for a company. And essentially what this is it's actually a claymation shoot 'em up. Like if you can see that back here. You know claymation, how you make claymation movies and animate them by manipulating the clay. Everything in here is like all claymation. So in that regards, it's a really interesting shmup, but because of that aspect that like everything's made out of clay, I played it for a little bit and it was actually really challenging shmup, but a nice shmup. But because everything's made out of clay, sometimes it becomes really hard to differentiate enemies between the background, because literally everything looks the same. So I wish they kind of did something to make the enemies stand out more. And also the bullets, like the bullets are like these small like little orange reddish bullets, and they really blend into the background sometimes, and sometimes it becomes really hard to see bullets and you just wind up randomly dying like, oh, I didn't see the bullet. So I kind of wish they had, you know, maybe some pink colorful bullets like some bullet hell shmups, which is why they do that. You didn't know, because it becomes hard to see that many bullets at a certain time. But I wish they maybe change the color of the bullets, make it stand out more. But you pilot this little like ship and you collect different upgrades. So like the enemies will drop upgrades, and there's different weapons. So there's like a spread shot, there's like a rapid fire, there's like a sonic beam shot, and there's like missiles. So it's really cool. So you can do that, and then the enemies, you know, usually go in patterns for the most part, and there's different like small enemies and really big enemies, and that take a long time to kill. But very challenging. Like I played it and got into it later on, and there were just tons of enemies popping up, and a lot of enemies took multiple hits to kill. So really interesting. I haven't encountered any boss fights yet, per se, but I haven't played it too long, so I'm not sure if there's boss fights, but definitely super interesting concept. I mean, it doesn't get much more interesting than a claymation shoot 'em up. It's got a story mode, and I think it's got a couple other modes in there, but you know, it's not worth it for expensive price, but for like under 10 bucks or so, I would say definitely pick this up if you're a shoot 'em up fan. Because it's definitely interesting. Is it one of the greatest shmups? Absolutely not. Like, the controls can be finicky at times, and your ship feels really loose at times with the maneuverability. But it's still a quirky little shmup in its own right. I mean, how often do you come across a claymation shoot 'em up? So I like the art style. So definitely check out Platypus for cheap if you're a shoot 'em up fan. And next is a game I haven't played, but I had to get on the clearance when I saw it, because this game is actually kind of expensive to find and kind of hard to find, but they had a pretty great price since they're clearancing. And that's a brand new copy of God's Eater Burst on the PSP, published by D3, who I love for publishing Earth Defense Force. But this is actually made by Bandai Namco, and it's a good way to compare it is like a Monster Hunter game meets like Phantasy Star. It is an RPG, and it's really cool. You have like these giant swords that like eat monsters. Like that's the name. It's super over the top, but I definitely can't wait to try it out. I've been wanting this for quite a while, and I think it only cost me like $15 brand new, which is the cheapest I could find it. So that was off Amazon clearance. This next one I did play, and I was definitely interested in this one as well, but they had it for a great price, 14 bucks brand new. So that is the third birthday for the PSP of Square Enix, the pseudo-spiritual sequel to Parasite Eve 2. But it's kind of not, because it's a different game, but it's just kind of weird how I decided to do it. This comes with this nice like shiny cover. But I'm really mixed on the game. Like, I played it for actually quite a bit, because I definitely was really interested in it. And what I will say is, visually the game is incredible. Like, it's absolutely gorgeous. Like, what it's pulling off on the PSP is mind-blowing. Like, some of the graphics and the cinematics, some of the like in-game like boss fights are so massive in scope that it's like, wow, I can't believe we're doing this on the PSP. But really cool in that regards. You do play as Iron Bray, who's like this detective somewhat, and you do different missions, and it's got really interesting mechanics. One of them is like an overdive system where you can dive into other people's minds and take over their body, and when you take over the body, you take over all their ammo that they have, which creates this like interesting mechanic where, you know, you have to plan out your vantage point. So like, if you're in a particular boss fight, you might have to like overdive into a particular vantage point from someone like higher or lower to get a better shot. And it also comes in handy when like you're about to die, so you can overdive quickly into another enemy and you get like your health back. So it's really interesting in that regards how that works. It becomes really frantic later on. You can also overdive into enemies to deal massive damage. You have different guns, you pick up different guns, and you can customize them. It's actually really in-depth, but really challenging from what I played. I'm still stuck on one of the missions, one of the boss fights, and it's this boss that like full heals after a certain amount of time, and he's got like 4 health bars or something. It's really ridiculous, but a really interesting system. The reason I say I'm mixed on it is because sometimes I do feel the controls are a little finicky at times, like especially the cover system where like I'll go on it and it's like it doesn't want to stay, like she'll come off super easy off the cover system, and it's really finicky. The aiming system, the auto aim, seems to always aim on like the enemy I don't want to aim on. Like it'll aim to, I think, the closest enemy. I think it defaults to the closest enemy, and then if you don't want to aim that enemy, you have to like scroll through with the left and right, and that becomes problematic because you want to be able to quickly shoot, so that becomes annoying at times. But like I said, really challenging. Surprisingly, it kind of reminds me of Resident Evil too, with like this kind of mechanic, because she kind of moves around a little slow. But like I said, really interesting game, really over the top action game. Definitely recommend it if you like these kind of games. Just it takes some getting used to for sure, but definitely it showcases some of the PSP's like untapped potential. Gorgeous cutscenes too, so really interesting game. Um, if you do want it, like I don't know how big you guys are into Dissidia, but if you do want it, you might want to buy it brand new because you get a free downloadable code for like DLC content for a Lightning Aya Bray costume for Dissidia 12 Duodecim. So that's really interesting. So you can have a costume that for Lightning that looks like Aya Bray from Parasite. So that's really interesting. So definitely an action game worth checking out. It's not too expensive nowadays, so definitely worth checking out. It's a cool, awesome action game for the PSP, even though it does have some faults. And next is another Atlas published PSP game. I've been after it for quite a while once I looked it up, and really interesting. And surprisingly, well, and understandably, I've really never heard anyone ever talk about this game, which doesn't surprise me. I am kind of interested in the weird, obscure games that no one else will play, but I picked up Hammering Hero for the PSP, published by Atlas. This is a really interesting game. I found it for a fantastic price too, because it's hard to find. And this is actually based off a really old school game, but I can't remember the title of it right now off the top of my head, but it's really old school from its origins. So essentially, it's really obscure, really over the top. Essentially, you play as this guy, this character right here, who's going around like helping people out, like in Japan, and there's like this evil corporation that he wants to take down that are like overrunning the city, destroying the city. So he takes on multiple roles and jobs that he can like take on. Like one's like a carpenter, so whatever job you are, that's the enemy, like the weapon you have. So like if you're a carpenter, you have like a giant hammer. If you're like a sushi chef, like one of them's like a sushi chef, you hit people with like sashimi and all that. It's like really over the top. Like, and you can power up your swings. So like one button does like a kind of horizontal swing, and the other does like over the top swing. You move left and right. It's a platforming action game. So if you can imagine that, 2D platforming action game. So you move around, jump, fight enemies, and there's boss fights at the end. There's really over the top and ridiculous boss fights at the end. The environments are really over the top, really ridiculous, and every now and then you encounter people who need to be helped, so you can try and help them. But you can charge up your swings too, so you can get like a really gigantic, powerful swing. Like if you're the sushi chef and you charge up your swing, you'll hit the enemy with like a giant fish. It's like really over the top. If you look at it, I don't know if you can see some of these screenshots, but like look at that. He's like, that's a giant. You become giant and fight like a giant little Godzilla creature, which I did, and that was really interesting. So it's just super over the top. It's clear. It's really clear it's a game that doesn't take itself too seriously. It's just, you know, really over the top. You do get items. There's like a in-game screen in between like missions, so you can get items and change your abilities on the fly. Really interesting. The environments are really interesting. It does suffer from some poor controls though, which is kind of a downfall to this game, and really sad too, because if it didn't suffer from those controls, this would be a really cool like hidden little gem, but I still think it kind of is. But it does suffer from poor controls, and what I mean by that specifically is it's kind of got poor hit detection at times. Like it's really specific about its hit detection. Like you have to be pretty much dead on with your hits in order to hit some of these enemies, which becomes frustrating. Like it just becomes frustrating. The jumping mechanics work relatively well. Something that will probably shock people and kind of catch people off guard is your character moves extremely slow, so it's not like a fast-paced kind of like action game like that. He moves extremely slow, and I don't know if that's their way of like maybe portraying like when he's carrying like big items or something, but he moves really slow, so it's kind of like a slow-paced kind of game like that, which I actually don't mind, but I know some people will find that kind of odd. But other than that, the biggest thing is it is extremely hard. Like, don't let its looks deceive you. This is actually a really punishing like action game. On like normal difficulty, this game will punish you. Like the enemies are really like have frantic patterns. There's all kinds of different enemies. Some jump, some shoot stuff at you. It's really over the top. The bosses are extremely challenging. They have like in the old school sense where you kind of have to memorize the boss's patterns. Like they have really specific patterns, but they're really strong, and you can only take like I believe one hit or so. Sometimes that's it. Like if you get one hit, you die. So it's like really old school in that sense. So it's a really old school, kind of punishing, really challenging 2D action platformer. So if that sounds interesting to you, if you like the art style you see, it's really like Japanese looking, really over the top. I actually recommend it for fans of like 2D action platformer games. Just go into it knowing that it actually is a challenging game. But I'm still having a hard time with some of the bosses right now. But I always go back to it because of the quirkiness of it, because of the art style of it. It's just so over the top that it keeps me coming back to it for sure. So Hammer and Hero. And that is Recent Pickups episode 12. That wraps it up. So I'd like to thank you guys for watching again. A nice chunk of games. Just wanted to talk about these games before these next frantic months with all these new releases like Xenoblade, The Last Story, Tales of Grace's Ad. I'm still waiting for Neptunia Mark 2, and so on and so forth. But there's so many titles coming out that I'm interested in, so it's going to be a crazy few months to come up, so I just want to get this out here before then. So I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Take it easy, guys.